The World Without Visas, Around the World with Valery Shanin. Travel across Turkey became the next stage of the World Without Visas project, within which Valery Shanin travels only around the countries, visa-free for Russians. On the travel across Turkey and northern Cyprus, his fellow travelers were Mainur Klemantieva from the island of Sakhalin, Mikhail Ivanov from Alma-Ata, and Marina Osipova from Kaluga. Turkey, tea and culinary delights. Second series. The ancient city of Amasya is surrounded with mountains from all directions, protecting it from the cold winds. The Eshilirmak River divides the old town into two. On the mountain top stands the fortress above the tombs of Pontic Tsars. According to the well-established scheme, the travelers intended to spend the night there. But there is what happened. Police has arrived. Police officers assured us that it is dangerous to sleep here and nearly forcefully drove us to a safer place. I enjoyed it. They gave us a ride in 2 cars, showed us everything, so polite and kind. We requested to remain there, and the officer says, I can't. People complain, people call. They did not let the Russian tourists to disconnect spiritually. And police officers were right. The night in the park was peaceful and most certainly warmer than on the top of the fortress. Amasya is included in the top 3 cities of Turkey by the number of mosques and madrasas. The biggest is the Great Mosque. It stands on the prime best place, in the park between the river bank and the main city street. The main site of Amasya, the tombs of the Pontic Tsars, cut out in the mountain slope, facing the city. From far, the tombs look very picturesquely, both at night and at daytime. But from a closer look, they are disappointing. There is nothing at all inside of them. The empty niches in the rock only. It is worth climbing up for the sake of the panoramic view of the old town's city center. The fortress was built along with the tombs and later was repeatedly reconstructed. And recently, they began to build the new one for tourists. From the first look, it is clear, an obvious modern remake. Archaeological excavations proceed along with the construction. The Black Sea coast of Turkey is not part of popular beach destinations. The water is colder here than in the Aegean or Mediterranean seas. Besides, a wide high-speed highway was laid directly on the coastline. Those who will come to sunbathe here should reconcile with noise and exhaust gases. Rize, the capital of Turkish tea, all the surroundings and the hill slopes in the city are occupied by tea plantations. The cooking technique and the use of the real Turkish tea is just a little simpler than the well-known Chinese tea ceremony. Here is the technique. We pour pre-cooked tea leaves into a mug gradually. It is necessary to train to avoid spilling. It looks like this. Then, at once, we take another teapot. Now we are working with both hands and pouring boiled water in. The tea does not cool down while you are drinking. If it is necessary to repeat, here you go it. The third, fifth, 10th, hot Turkish tea in the homeland of Turkish tea in Rize. The Black Sea coast of Turkey is separated from the central Anatolia by the high Pontic mountains. The highways were paved through them, but there are also pedestrian tracks. The most popular one begins in the settlement of Ayder and goes over the pass at the altitude of 3,150 meters across the Kashgar Ridge. The route is calculated for 2 days, but our travelers set the goal to make it in only one. Not for the sake of setting any record, they have no warm gear to spend the night in a tent at big height. They have no map. They are guiding themselves according to the scheme of walking routes photographed from the guidebook. They are trying to download the map from the internet by means of the iPad, unsuccessfully. As it usually happens in mountains, with each new step, new views open up, one better than the other. They have not found the trail yet, but it is somewhere near. Now it is 4:20 a.m. We have 2 more hours, 1 hour till the Passover, and an hour after. They have gone over the pass. Rains, fogs, and the damp woods of the Black Sea coast were left behind. Ahead are the desert gorges of the southern part of the Pontic Mountains waiting for the travelers. It is necessary to manage to descend from the height before it gets dark. It is cold on the top, and on top of it, strong wind. The fact that it is never really warm here is evidenced by the remains of the last year's snow. And this is at the end of September. Let's go quickly down to the warmth. It got dark while we are still walking. We haven't managed to go down much. We'll need to continue the descent in the dark. Luckily, it is moonlight night. The tent was placed only before the dawn, and we were up already before the sunrise. It is very cold. It's hard to fall asleep. The height over 2 kilometers affects. We need to go down as soon as possible. Only there we will be able to get warmer. As soon as we managed to pack our stuff, the dolmuş showed up on the road, the route taxi, so called in Turkey. It goes somewhere. Kars was founded in the 4th century. In the 10th century, it was the capital of Armenia, then was part of Georgia, and only in the 16th century it became part of the Ottoman Empire. The fortress of Kars was constructed in 1597 during the reign of the Sultan Murad III. In the 19th century, during the series of the Russian-Turkish wars, the Russian troops stormed the fortress 4 times. Practically everything that's possible to see here now was constructed by Russians. The Mosque of Evliya was built in 1579 near the tomb of the famous Muslim Saint Abul Hassan Harakani. In 2000, the whole religious complex was starting to be renovated, and the process still goes on. We put, as usual, 2 pieces of sugar, although the glasses here in Kars are bigger than in other parts of Turkey. 40 kilometers from Kars, on the Aegean river bank that serves as the border between Turkey and Armenia, there are ruins remaining of the ancient capital of the Armenian Ani Kingdom, the city that was situated on the route of the Great Silk Way from Constantinople to China, prospered and was known as the city of 1,001 churches. There is almost nothing left of the former glory. the wasteland full of debris, where only the churches and temples lying in the ruins or recently restored can be seen here and there. All eastern Anatolia was once part of Great Armenia. Ancient Armenian churches, monasteries and fortresses have still remained here. Among them there is the Geçivan fortress, called Keçivan Kalesi in Turkish manner. It is in the small village of Tunçkaya, 12 kilometers from the highway Kars, Kagizman. Transport goes regularly on the highway, but it is only possible to go further by foot. There is a road, but it is a winding serpentine across the rising valley, and the travelers should go straight, cutting through. The fortress is already visible, but the rise to it is even steeper. We have left the backpacks in the small cave under the rock. Nobody will find them here and have gone to storm the fortress. The Geçivan fortress remained here from the Armenian town that used to be on this place in the 3rd century AD. After Persians had destroyed the town, Kurds settled on the ruins. They built houses and sheds out of debris from the ancient constructions. Tourists come here seldom. The travelers have caused a turmoil among the local villagers. They have shown us not only around the fortress, but also around the village itself. The next goal, the Kurdish village of Çengili, an ancient Armenian monastery, has remained there. Of course, we'll be needing to reach it by hitchhiking. There is no other way. Here we go, on the trees. Really, we have not ridden on trees yet. And here it is, the tractor with trees. Don't stand there, because you can fly off it. Keep close to the center. The minute the travelers entered the village of Çengili, they were at once invited as guests to drink tea. All big family has gathered, relatives from the neighboring houses came too. The conversation has struck up. Who, from where to? So, word after word, we stayed until dinner, and then it was time to spend the night. There is no hotel in the village, and the travelers were not permitted to stay in tents. What for? There is a vacant room in the house, and beds aren't necessary. They sleep on the floor here. We succeeded to leave only after breakfast. We are leaving from the hospitable house in the village of Çengili, which is 24 kilometers away from the next road. Only the lonely church, chosen by pigeons, has remained from the Armenian monastery. Only tractors can pass on this steep, unpaved road. People are very hospitable here. The travelers were invited for tea again. It is impolite to refuse. They have brought us directly to the house. It is the second time already. We are hitchhiking on a big truck. Cool, everybody fit. The more the merrier. In Bayazet Fortress, during the Russian-Turkish War of 1877-1878, the Russian garrison had been defending from the attacks of the Turkish army for 23 days. The position of the fortress on the steep rocky ledge helped them to withstand it. It is not easy to reach it now either. I am true. Carefully, please, don't push me off. It's a cliff here. Only the small fragment of the wall is left from the fortress. Directly below is the mosque, and slightly further on the road, the Ishkak Pasha Palace is visible. It was both a housing and administrative estate, like the Istanbul Topkapi Palace, and just a little smaller than it. Having caught the sight of tourists, locals give up all their affairs and hurry to get acquainted. They pose for the cameras with pleasure. And the truck drivers not only offer us a ride, but also become voluntary guides. The former Armenian Elyat and nowadays the Turkish city of Aklat is on the northwestern coast of the Van Lake. It was part of Armenia during most of its history up to 1915. The Halat Sahil fortress was also built by Armenians. The entrance is free, there is nobody inside. Half-collapsed walls, towers and casemates. The Van Lake is the biggest soda lake in the world. There is so much soda dissolved in the water that it feels oily, but it is possible to swim. At the beginning of October, the water is still fairly warm. The ruins of the ancient city have remained in the outskirts of Halat, that was destroyed by the Persian Shah Tahmasp I in 1548. The remains of the city walls are inhabited caves. And hitchhiking again. I like hitchhiking. We got on a passing truck with tomatoes to downtown Bitlis. It is a remarkable city. Bitlis was a large shopping center in the Middle Ages. In the 16th century, the Kurdish Peaks used to govern here, and then the city got under the power of Turks. But the majority of the population is still Kurds. At the top of the rocky cliff, in the center of Bitlis, the ruins of an ancient fortress have remained. Now it is a place of archaeological excavations. The entrance is closed for tourists. For our travelers, as for a group of journalists from Russia, an exception was made. They requested, however, not to film excavation works, only the view from the top, over the city. The locals do not forbid to film them. On the contrary, they pose readily. Is it far? 1 hour road. There are some remarkable places there. People on the streets approach us to give advices as to what is worth to see. We have started our morning on the edge of the field by the Tiger River. According to scientists, somewhere approximately on this spot, people got engaged in agriculture and began to grow wheat for the first time. The first fortress was constructed by the Romans. They called it Kefe. In 640, Arabs won the fortress from Byzantines and renamed it as Eastern Kaifa, Hence comes the modern name of the city. The fortress, despite its impressive look, could never protect the city. In 1232 it was captured by Kurds, and in 1525 by Turks. The bridge, with half-ruined support pillars sticking out in the middle of the river, was built by Arabs. The Great Silk Way from Europe to China was passing through it. In 1534, the Turkish Sultan Suleiman I annexed Asankeyf to the Ottoman Empire. That provided safety from external enemies and peaceful old age to its citizens. Most of the population here is still Kurds. We are climbing into the narrow gorge. So far, it is unknown where to. Asankeyf is considered among the oldest cities of the world. The first settlement appeared on this place about 9,000 years ago. People lived in caves back then. Part of them remained until now. The city was growing, developing, and aging. It won't be here soon. Asankeyf has gotten in the flooding zone of a new dam, and in the near future will go to the bottom of the man-made sea. Now we are going back to where we climbed. Wanted to cut shorter, it was impossible. He is like Susanin, brings us somewhere and we have to struggle. The last view over the city that we won't have anymore. Lunch in the traditional restaurant overlooking the destroyed bridge, and on the way. There were 2 drivers already. They picked 4 of us. Now we are 6 together in one cabin of the truck. Midyat, a monument of historical heritage. New buildings are not built here, and old ones are carefully restored. Life flows slowly, but there are some dramatic collisions happening. They also occur on streets, in front of neighbors and casual gapers. Here is one of them. They want to bring the cow to slaughter, and it resists. They don't manage to drag it into the truck. They have already put a calf there, and a bowl with food, but everything is useless. The animal, as though, feels the destiny, prepared for it, and resists with all might and main. Midyat is situated near Syria. There are many Christians here of Syriac Orthodox Church. Therefore, wine is not under a ban. It is also produced here and sold openly. The city of Mardin was founded by Assyrians. Since that old time, many nationalities lived here. A real melting pot digested Arabs, Kurds, Turks, and Armenians. And now there are mosques and churches, the Arab palaces and the Turkish mud huts standing side by side. And far below, the valleys of the northern Syria are visible. The fortress is hanging over the old town. It is still used as a military base. Şanlıurfa, or the sacred Urfa, is a very ancient city. By the legend, Eden from the Old Testament is located somewhere here. A little on the side from the old town, at the hilltop of Damladzik, the ruins of a big fortress have remained. It is perfectly protected. The steep cliff on one side, and from 3 others, the deep ditches cut out in the rock. 2 classical 15-meter columns, sticking out lonely beside the cliff, remain from the church of the 3rd century that stood on this place. Down to the foundation of the rock leads an underpass. According to the legend, the Old Testament prophet Abraham was born in Urfa. The cave where this happened is a holy site for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It is located in the yard of the mosque, but the entrance is open for all. However, men and women enter through different doors and get to different parts of the cave. The pond with sacred carps is called by the name of the prophet Abraham. Each pilgrim considers his duty to feed them. Churches, mosques, and a shopping center were constructed on its banks. People also come to the park to have a rest without any religious purposes. The tincture from blindness, deafness, dumbness, from everything, something like propolis. Haran or Karahe, one of the most ancient cities of the world, it was mentioned in the biblical book of Genesis as the place of burial of the father prophet Abraham. Farah. Other characters of the Bible lived here too. There are not many material evidences remaining. The biggest ruins are the remains of the mosque, relatively recent by the standards of the city. There is a regular Turkish village on the ruins of the ancient city now. The fortress in Harana existed already at the time of Hetz. Later, it was repeatedly reconstructed. The biggest changes were made in the 10th century by Arabs. Now the citadel is being restored again. The entrance inside is forbidden. The village of Halfeti stands on the bank of the reservoir on the Euphrates River. Euphrates is a legendary river, the place of origin of one of the most ancient civilizations. When a dam was constructed, the majority of the ancient settlements were flooded. This is why the minarets are sticking out of the water. Only Rumkale's fortress did not suffer from the flood. It was providently constructed on a high rock. The antique city of Zugm was unlucky. The city, with its name translated as the bridge from boats, was founded at an ancient crossing of Euphrates. Here, Alexander the Great passed on the way to Persia, and later caravans started to go through this exact place, continuing on the Great Silk Way to China. But after the dam had been constructed and the level of the river had risen, the city of Biredzik is also situated on the bank of the great Euphrates River. It was founded by the ancient Greeks. It was them who constructed the fortress, the ruins of which can be seen now on the hilltop in the city center. Alexander the Great and Crusaders, Arabs and Turks Seljuki have been here.